Welcome to another stop in our tour through the Bible lands. Today we're in Corinth, where Paul spent a year and a half, 18 months, from the years 51 and 52 AD. And one of the reasons that he came here to Corinth was because this was a very immoral city. If you look to the top of that mountain, up on top there was actually the temple of Aphrodite. And of course, in Greek times, she was the goddess of love. They said that there were about 1,000 women, temple prostitutes, that made money for the temple, that served in that temple of Aphrodite. And how you could recognize the women who served Aphrodite was they shaved their heads. That's how you could tell them. All 1,000 weren't up there at the same time. Some of them were down here in the city, and that's how you could see here. And so what our guide told us about this particular location, and we have to remember when we read the scriptures, it's very, very important to get the context of why Paul was writing, and you have to know where he was writing and what was the situation at the time. And so when Paul came to Corinth, what he found was the temple of Aphrodite and women selling their bodies as prostitutes and shaving their head. And as he came and started explaining the gospel of Jesus Christ, many of these temple prostitutes became Christians. Now, they had been slaves, but one of the benefactors for Paul here, and we've seen his inscription, was a man named Erastus. And it was believed that perhaps many of the temple prostitutes got bought. They got paid. As they came to Christ, people paid for them and they were free. And so what they started doing is coming into the church. And these were women, you could tell them because they had the shaved heads. Now they were coming into the Christian church. And in this case, it was pointed out by our guide that Corinth was the only location where it talks about the women not cutting their hair and covering their head. It also talks about women being silent in church, only here in Corinth. And what our guide was telling us is as these people came into the church, other people were gossiping and talking about these women and pointing to them. And this guide was saying that because it was only here in Corinth that Paul made the comment for women to be silent in church. What he was probably talking about was for them to not gossip and not point at other people and claim, well, look at those sinners and aren't we glad we're not like them. And that's why he said, let the women be silent in the church. And then he also talks only about hair here in Corinth. He didn't mention that in the letter to the Galatians, the Ephesians, the Philippians, or any other things. So it's very important to understand the context, and we can take this forward to our churches. And as we look around, we need to make sure that people know that we're not talking about them and pointing out that their particular sin. We are all sinners. We all need to ask Christ for forgiveness. So as we read our scriptures, let's remember to take the context and understand the scriptures as to what Paul was trying to say. So that's our lesson from Corinth in front of the temple of Aphrodite. And until we meet again, may God bless you.